Let's talk Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is a very popular, possibly the most popular tabletop RPG on the market these days. Um, and part of the appeal of Dungeons and Dragons is basically that it's a collaborative storytelling effort. Um, Players each create characters, and then they proceed to use these characters to live in a world that that the storyteller, the dungeon master or the game master, depending on what system you're using, creates. Now, what I'm interested in though is that for figuring out whether outcomes that have a risk succeed or not, such as swinging your sword at somebody or scaling a wall to avoid a rampaging monster or sneaking past guards, anything that would produce drama if it fails, is subject essentially to a roll of the dice. And there's many different types of dice. There's here, and I mean, dice have been around for ages. When we say dice, we normally think about a six-sided die. And they've been, again, cubes are easier to make. Here's some old Roman dies. Here's a 20-sided die from Egypt, Ptolemaic Egypt. That's pretty cool. And these are your standard role-playing dice. You've got some systems just use the D6. Other systems use a combination of these guys, but these are the six that have generally been used. So you've got your caltrop, or the four-sided die. If you think stepping on a Lego hurts, yeah, no. D4's pain on a whole nother scale. You've got your 6-sided die, your 8-sided die, your 10-sided die, your 12-sided die, and your 20-sided die. So these are evenly weighted, so they will generate numbers between 1 and 20. And typically in this system like Dungeons & Dragons, you roll, basically it is roll a d20, add modifiers to it, and then ask the DM what happens. And that's typically the way it works. However, one of the things you do is generate characters, and those rely off your standard 6-sided die. So we're going to talk about just your 6-sided die. Now, characters in Dungeons & Dragons have 6 attributes: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. But we really don't care about those. What we care about is basically when you create a new character, we're given the option of creating a character with the following stats: 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Stats range in those attributes range from 3 to 20, where 10 is basically average human, 18 is kind of Olympic, 17, 18 is Olympic level, and 19, 20 is kind of, if not superhuman, on the peak of human possibility. Basically, very, very few individuals would ever be rated a 20 in any kind of stat. So, my question is, given these stats, right, you're given the option of either taking this as your stats. This is often referred to as the elite array, where so you can take these stats as though you rolled them, or you can roll for your stats. And my question is it better to take these stats, or is it better to roll for it? Now, how do you roll for stats in Dungeons & Dragons? The way you roll for stats in Dungeons & Dragons is that you roll 4 6-sided dice. And let's talk a bit about dice notation here. You roll 4d6. That means you roll 4 6-sided dice. If it was 4d10, this would mean 4 10-sided die, and add up the results. 1d20 means roll 1 20-sided die, add up the results. 3d4 means roll 3 of those caltrops and add up the results. So, so if you'll hear me, so the way you generate stats is you roll 4d6, but you drop, add them together, but drop your lowest. So for instance, if I rolled, say, a 4, a 5, a 2, and a 1, I would drop the 1 and add up 4, 5, and 2 for a grand total of 11 for that stat. So we need to generate. So let's go ahead and figure this out. So let's write a method, def gen stats. And that will return, and let's see, this will return a list of 6 stats. Let's comment the elite array in here is equal to 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. Played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, if you can't tell by the fact that I'm spatting these off all willy-nilly. So, def generate stats, def let's see, roll. So here what we need to do is roll, let's go ahead and simulate rolling 4d6 roll 4d6 drop 1 or drop low. So this is the function that we'll use to actually do the dice rolling. Okay, so let's go ahead, and that makes actually the generate stats fairly easy. Stats is equal to roll 40 is equal to an empty array. There's 6 stats total, as I mentioned. So for blank in range 4d6, or for blank in range, it's getting late. Should really be doing this more when I'm awake. 4d6, roll 4d6 and drop the lowest. And we will say, hey, stats.append that to our results. Boom. Return stats. Now to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create, to do rolling this, we're going to do something similar. Create an array, or create a list for blank in range 4. We're going to roll 4 6-sided die, import random, rolls dot append random dot rand int 1 to 6. Right, so that will give us an answer between 1 and 6. Now let's go ahead and do, so that gives us 4 rolls, but we need 3 rolls, drop the lowest. So what we'll do is we'll say rolls is equal to rolls sorted. So we're going to sort this sucker. Okay, so we're going to sort this, overwrite the previous list. What does this do for us? Well, now that it's sorted from lowest to greatest, so we can just simply slice this off. We can slice off the first element. Rolls is equal to rolls 1 to the end, right? That will slice it off. And then return, well, we want a number, so return the sum of rolls. And sum is pretty awesome. It's just a built-in function that will add up any list. There you go. So let's go ahead and print gen stats and test this out. All right, that seems pretty good. So next video. See, whoop, there we go. Stop recording.